This year's Treasurer's Report has been promoted in the batting order, but you'll be pleased to hear that, like other members of the English top order, I won't be occupying the crease for very long. But before I present the summary of the 2017 annual accounts, I'd like to express my thanks to people who worked very hard to make it happen. Please don't read last year's, because this is word for word what I said then. Firstly, to Claire Clements, who processes thousands of transactions through QuickBooks. That means that we can have management accounts throughout the year, and then we can go public with them on an annual basis. And you can come and be delighted to hear what's happened over the past year. To Teresa for maintaining our financial controls, keeping everybody in line, and processing thousands of payment requests and receipts. To Catherine Humphrey for processing the payroll on such a timely basis every month. Looking at the back, I see that her twin sister is running the laptop as well, so thanks to her as well. And lastly, a thank you to Barbara Rushby, who faithfully counts and banks the collections each week. It's not an easy job to do accurately. So thanks to all of you. So, how did things turn out in 2017? We turned in a deficit of 20 grand, which at first sight doesn't seem terribly clever, but in a way it's what we planned to happen. It represents the second step of investing our reserves. It was predictable, and it was close to hitting our target. More than you can say about Shane Long. So I'll do a very brief summary. There's more detail in my financial review, which I see as a small loose leaf sheet in your pack, if you want more detail. If you want any more detail than that, there's a whole pack of the accounts at the back. We did 3. I can't believe there's only like 3 people in the congregation who wouldn't want to wade through that. But if you have any concerns or questions, by all means, ask them probably after this, so as not to embarrass me here up at the front. Catherine, could you fire up the first pie chart, please? So, we're going to defy convention, or the accountant's convention, and start off with what our expenditure was in 2017. It was 275,000 or thereabouts. We had a budget of 278,000. We had a prior year of 275,000. In 2017, we spent 38p in the pound on the Common Mission Fund, 31p in the pound on staff, 17p in the pound on running ministry and other running costs, and there was 4p in the pound going off to other organisations in the form of donations. I could really have put up last year's pie chart pretty much, because in 2016 the equivalent numbers were 38p, the same, 31p, the same, 9p on buildings, 16p on ministry, and 5p on donations. So the expenditure for 2017 we could say was familiar, we could say it was predictable, we could say in essence it was business as usual. But it's often the case when we classify things as familiar and predictable that they're taken for granted. But I think although those categories could be expressed, it would be good and wise to reflect for a moment on how our donations already have an impact in our locality and beyond. So there's contributions to DAM locally, and wider initiatives of the diocese via the Diocesan Common Mission Fund. There's contributions to not-for-profit organisations with a wider reach than our local parish. There's investment in the care and nurture of children and young people in the matters of faith, all done in a safe environment. Their initiative to support, promote engagement with and the serving of non-church people. Alpha, Beacon, all sorts, superstars. There's the continuing development of staff and laity, ministry within the parish. There's the school of worship. There's the provision of upkeep of our buildings or support, supporting our worship and ministry. Obviously the list is not exhaustive, but indicative of the good things that have already been established and that we should just take a moment to celebrate. Catherine, can we have the income one, please? So bear in mind that our expenditure was $275,000. Our income for the same period was 20,000 less. So the income for the year was about 256,000. It wasn't unexpected. Our budget was 258,000, and last year's figure was 264,000. So not bad at predicting what's going to happen. In terms of P's in the pound, 2017, planned giving brought in 68p in the pound, gift aid 16, other income in the form of renting out buildings and perhaps grants or other things like that, turned in 11p. New givers contributed 2p in the pound, and the collection and envelope schemes 3p. The equivalents for 2016 were 70p, 16p, 11p, nothing and 3p. So pretty much close to what we had last year, close to expectation. So in terms of income, we could say that that was similar to last year and as expected. But it's part of the job of the Treasurer to try and spot things early, to see if there are any particular trends. So if Catherine would be kind enough to put up my last visual, you'll be pleased to hear. We've got a chart here showing donations. That's the sum of our planned giving on a monthly basis, our planned giving with other frequencies. There's a few people who give quarterly, biannually. We've included collections, envelopes, and other donations. And what you'll see is that there's a massive spike in 2015, which was abnormal, but abnormal in the good sense of the word. If you pay more attention to 2013, 14 and 16, in each of those years we cleared the bar. If you're a high jumper, we cleared the bar of £200,000. And I don't want to bring any alarm, but it would be an oversight on my part if I didn't just report to you that in 2017 there was a step down. We didn't clear the bar at 200,000. We had donations, total donations, just over 195,000. And when I was thinking about that, I think I came to a realisation, and perhaps we as a church community ought to come to the realisation, that it's more difficult for our church members to secure and pass on financial resources for advancement of God's kingdom. Pensions are less generous, wage growth is lagging behind inflation, there's the increasing cost of securing and maintaining a home. For some people, they'll be planning the cost of care in old age, just from the fact that there's a greater life expectancy. So we have to be real, because although we are heaven bound, we are living in the real world at this moment in time. Just a general comment on the 2018 general outlook. Last year I commented that uncertainty would continue within the UK and further afield. This was brought about by terrorism, further austerity, local, national level, and unknowns of Brexit and Trumpism. How clever I was. So this still prevails in 2018, and there's uncertainty abounding everywhere. And on the basis of that, the PCC have in 2018 set a third deficit budget. The estimate of income is at 253,000, and the expenditure has been set at 273. I'll come back to that in a minute. But I know that you're such a caring bunch that you want to know the sorts of things that are keeping me awake at night. That's apart from how on earth will Southampton get 3 more Premier League wins this season. So if we take on board the results of the past and we look forward to the plans that we've hatched for 2018, this treasurer has a dilemma. How do we simultaneously deliver our revised mission priorities on a sustainable basis? That's where income and expenditure match. At the same time, reorder our buildings to accommodate those same mission priorities. You can imagine that such a multitasking for a male pensioner is pretty daunting. I just wanted to put out some of my early thinking about that, though lots of people might not find the financial document called a balance sheet very interesting. Maybe Martin and I do. We're looking through that and thinking about how these two things could be pursued without us being reckless or foolish. A bit of external processing. Glad Lena sat down, because that's not normally what I do. And my first thoughts I'll share with you. Hopefully there will be a lot of debate in the future. We have control over the parish hall. We own 133 Church Street, and as far as I know, we are the proud owners of St John's. So my way of thinking is leaning towards that perhaps we ought to use the proceeds from sale of these buildings in order to reorder St James to support the new mission priorities. I would also put out there that we probably need to get sale proceeds before committing to future expenditure. One reason, because the trend in other nations that we've just seen, a little bit of a backward step and a downward step, probably don't suggest that we'll be able to service any large debts that we take on. A matter for discussion and debate. The other part of the balance sheet deals with net current assets. It's another very interesting concept, isn't it, Martin? Very. And normally these are to do with the running of a business, the parish. So we've got 82,000 in net current assets. We don't know what the value of the 3 buildings will turn in, but perhaps it might be wise to use our net current assets of 82 grand to absorb our deficit budget in 2018 of 20k before we move to break even and sustainability in 2019. That would leave us with about about 60 grand in reserves, and we have to have some of those to be regarded as a going concern. So I'll put that out to you if anybody wants to come and help me with those two dynamics that are in operation at the same time. I'd very much welcome to have a chat with them. So, you've heard what we've been doing for the past 3 years at PCC, and you might be asking, where's the wisdom in setting deficit budgets? Surely that's the road to ruin. Isn't it reckless to have planned it that way? What have they bought? I think for the parish, they bought time. Time to think, to listen to and hear from God, to canvass opinion from church members and the wider community. It's given the parish time to adjust. It enables us to take on board a gradual transition to new mission priorities. Watch this space. At the same time, it protects our strong presence in our local community that we worked so hard to put together over the past few years. It would be nice to think that our government would have achieved all the things it had done in the past whilst pursuing Brexit. My guess is that some things have diminished in lots of ways. So I would just like to take a few seconds out to say I'd like to pay tribute to Dan, church wardens, staff, the PCC, who are working incredibly hard to introduce change without giving up the good things that have been built up over the past few years. That's not sentimentalism from an old fella stood here at the front. I know this is true because I see it at first hand. My cooking skills and all sorts of other domestic things certainly have been enhanced by the time certain other people have been spending in other places, and I might not say it at the time, but I'm extraordinarily grateful for the amount of effort that those people have put in. I think as a parish we are very lucky. So, some final thoughts. After a bit of wrestling, I've accepted that the financial resources of this PCC are unlikely to be expanding indefinitely, though of course nothing is impossible for God. And pondering on that, I was drawn back to a fairly innocuous part of the published accounts. It comes on page 18. And it's something that could too easily be overlooked. This is what it says. I didn't write it, the accountant wrote it. Donated services and facilities are included at the value to the PCC where this can be quantified. Then goes on to state, the value of services provided by volunteers has not been included in these financial statements. And though reluctantly we may have to take on board some limitations in terms of our finances, the value of the services provided by volunteers not included in these financial statements. It's an acknowledgement that the time we give to loving God, loving one another and reaching the world is priceless, and it can't even be measured by accounting convention. So, our leaders have set an example in their giving of tithes. Ooh, everybody said. In doing so, they will offer each of us, mere mortals, the opportunity to invest not only our money, but also our time in undertaking collective acts of kindness to those in need. And we've heard Dan talking about the big yeses. So my encouragement to the wider parish and to the people here assembled is how about responding with a big yes.